Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Can everyone hear me okay? Great, thank you. This remote public hearing is called to order this Tuesday, July 13th, 2021 at 2 p.m. My name is John Morissette, member and presiding officer of the Connecticut Siting Council. Other members of the council are Robert Hannon, designee for Commissioner Katie Dykes of the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection. Lot Wynn, designee for Chairman Marissa Paslick Gillette of the Public Utilities Regulatory Authority, Robert Silvestri, Luann Cooley, and Daniel P. Lynch Jr. Members of the staff are Executive Director and Staff Attorney Melanie Bachman, Robert Mercier, Siting Analyst, Lisa Fontaine, Physical Administrative Officer. As everyone is aware, there's currently a statewide effort to prevent the spread of the coronavirus. This is why the council is holding this remote public hearing, and we ask for your patience. If you haven't done so already, I ask that everyone please mute their computer audio and their telephones now. This hearing is held pursuant to the provisions of Title 16 of the Connecticut General Statutes and the Uniform Administrative Procedure Act upon an application from Selco Partnership doing business as Verizon Wireless for a certificate of environmental compatibility and public need for the construction, maintenance, and operation of a telecommunications facility located at 118 Newtown Road, Woodbridge, Connecticut. This application was received by the council on May 13th, 2021. The council's legal notice of the date and time of this remote public hearing was published in the New Haven Register on June 10th, 2021. Upon this council's request, the applicant installed a sign in the vicinity of the proposed site so as to inform the public of the name of the applicant, the type of the facility, the remote public hearing date, and contact information for the council, including the website and phone number. As a reminder to all, off-the-record communication with a member of the council or a member of the council staff upon the merits of this application is prohibited by law. The parties and interveners to this proceeding are as follows. The applicant, Selco Partnership, doing business as Verizon Wireless. Its representative, Kenneth C. Baldwin, Esquire of Robertson Cole, LLP. The intervener, SEPA intervener, Woodbridge Newtown Neighborhood Environmental Trust, WNNET for the abbreviation, represented by Keith R. Ainsworth, Esquire, of the Law Office of Keith R. Ainsworth, Esquire. And party of the proceedings is the town of Woodbridge, represented by Ira W. Bloom, Esquire, and Mercham Moses, PC. We will proceed in accordance with the prepared agenda, a copy of which is available on the council's docket number 502 webpage, along with a record of this matter, the public hearing notice, instructions for public access to this remote public hearing, and the Citizen's Guide to Siting Council's procedure. Interested persons may join any session of this hearing to listen, but no public comments will be received during the 2 p.m. evidentiary session. At the end of the evidentiary session, we will recess until 6:30 p.m. for a public comment session. Please be advised that any person may be removed from the remote evidentiary session or the public comment session at the discretion of the council. The 6:30 p.m. public comment session is reserved for the public to make brief statements into the record. I wish to note that the applicant, parties, and interveners, including their representatives, witnesses, and members, are not allowed to participate in the public comment session. I also wish to note for those who are listening and for the benefit of your friends and neighbors who are unable to join us for this remote public comment session, that you or they may send written statements to the council within 30 days of the date hereof, either by mail or email. And such written statements will be given the same weight as if spoken during the remote public comment session. A verbatim transcript of this remote public hearing will be posted on the council's docket number 502 webpage and deposited with the Woodbridge Town Clerk's Office for the convenience of the public. Please be advised that the council's projected evaluation criteria under the statute does not include the consideration of property value. The council will take a 10 to 15-minute break at a convenient juncture around 3:30 p.m. We have two motions to take care of this afternoon. The first, on June 22nd, 2021, Oshner Place LLC submitted a request for parties SEPA intervener status. Attorney Bachman may wish to comment.
Thank you, Mr. Morissette. As you mentioned, on June 22nd, an abutting property owner, Oxner Place LLC, requested party and SEPA intervener status. Staff recommends approval of the request and grouping Oxner Place with WNNET under General Statute Section 1650-N, subsection C, on the basis that they have the same interests, and WNNET's responses to the council's interrogatories include 9 attached photographs that was taken by the owners of Oxner Place, Mark and Michelle Greengarden, residing at 15 Soundview Drive, which is the Oxner Place address. And they are listed on the hearing program for this afternoon under WNNET Exhibit 2, and their photos A, B, D, and F through K on the hearing program. Now, as group parties, they maintain separate counsel, witnesses, party intervener designations, and of course appeal rights, but they would cross-examine the other parties and interveners and appear for cross-examination by other parties and interveners together with the intent to pool resources. And if any of the parties elect to not be a member of the group, submit written notice to the council, but we ask that it be with a condition that the Greengarden photos that are attached to WNNET's interrogatory responses are attributed to the respective party witness before the continued evidentiary hearing session scheduled for August 31st. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Bachman. Is there a motion?
Mr. Morissette, Mr. Silvestri, I'll move to approve the request with the grouping as noted.
Thank you, Mr. Silvestri. Is there a second?
Hannan, second.
Thank you, Mr. Hannan. Any discussion, Mrs. Silvestri?
No discussion, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hannan, any discussion?
I have no discussion, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Nguyen, any discussion?
No discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lynch, any discussion?
No discussion.
Thank you. Ms. Cooley, any discussion?
I have no discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have no discussion as well. We'll now move to the vote. Mr. Silvestri, how do you vote?
Vote to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Silvestri. Mr. Hannan, how do you vote?
Vote to approve.
Thank you. Mr. Nguyen, how do you vote?
Vote to approve. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lynch.
Vote approval.
Thank you. Ms. Cooley?
I vote to approve. Thank you.
Thank you. And I also vote to approve. We have a unanimous decision. Thank you. Motion number 2, on June 28, 2021, Winnet submitted a request for a hearing and site visit. Attorney Bachman may wish to comment.
Thank you, Mr. Morissette. On June 28th, 2021, Winnet submitted a motion for in-person hearing and site visit, arguing that the emergency order or executive order number 7B issued by Governor Lamont, allowing for state agencies to hold remote hearings, expired on June 30, 2021, and that a remote hearing does not meet the requirements under General Statute Section 16-50M, that a hearing be held at a location selected by the council in the county in which the proposed facility or any part thereof is to be located after 6:30 p.m. for the convenience of the public. The application was submitted to the council on May 13th, 2021, when Executive Order 7B was in effect. Notice of the remote public hearing was issued on June 4th and published on June 10th, prior to the June 30, 2021 expiration of Executive Order 7B. Public Act 21-2 took effect on July 1st of 2021. Section 149 permits remote hearings under the Freedom of Information Act and Uniform Administrative Procedure Act until April 30th of 2022, with similar conditions as Executive Order 7B with regard to access to the meeting by the public, notification of the agenda, and the documents to be discussed. As established by the Connecticut Supreme Court, field reviews are not required by statute, nor are field reviews an integral part of the hearing process. Council interrogatory number 37 to the applicant requested documentation of a virtual field review, and a response has been submitted. Therefore, staff recommends the motion be denied. Thank you, Mr. Morissette.
Thank you, Attorney Bachman. Is there a motion?
Silvestri, Mr. Morissette, I'll move to deny.
Thank you, Mr. Silvestri. Is there a second?
Hannon, second.
We have a motion and a second to deny the motion. Is there any discussion? Mr. Silvestri?
No discussion, Mr. Morissette. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion, Mr. Hannon?
I have no discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Nguyen, any discussion?
No discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lynch, any discussion? Mr. Lynch, any discussion?
As much as I feel compromised by these Zoom hearings, I have no discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Lynch. Ms. Cooley, any discussion?
I have no discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have no discussion. We'll now move to the vote. Mr. Silvestri, how do you vote?
Vote to approve the motion to deny.
Thank you, Mr. Silvestri. Mr. Hannon, how do you vote?
Vote to approve the motion to deny. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Nguyen, how do you vote?
Yeah, vote to approve, motion to deny. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lynch, how do you vote?
I vote to approve the denial.
Thank you. Ms. Cooley, how do you vote?
I vote to approve. Thank you.
Thank you. The motion to approve the denial. I also vote to approve the motion for denial. The motion is approved unanimously. Thank you. We will now move on to administrative notices taken by the council. I wish to call your attention to those items shown on the hearing program marked as Roman numeral 1C, items 1 through 80 that the council has administratively noticed. Does any party or intervener have an objection to the items that the council has administratively noticed? Attorney Baldwin.
No objection, Mr. Morissette.
Thank you, Attorney Baldwin. Attorney Ainsworth.
No objection, sir.
Thank you. Attorney Bloom.
Actually, Attorney Bamonte sitting in for Attorney Bloom today, but no objection on behalf of the town.
Thank you, Attorney Bamonte. Attorney Green and Attorney Lasky. Attorney Green and Attorney Lasky.
Unfortunately,
Thank you. Go ahead. I'm sorry, someone was speaking?
Unfortunately, Attorney Green and Attorney Lasky were unavailable for today's hearing.
Thank you for that information. I very much appreciate that. Okay, we'll move on accordingly. The council hereby administratively notices these items. Excuse me. We'll now move to the appearance by the applicant. Will the applicant present its witnesses panel for purposes of taking the oath? Attorney Bachman will administer the oath.
Thank you, Mr. Morissette. On behalf of the applicant, my name is Kenneth Baldwin with Robinson and Cole. The applicant's witness panel consists of 5 members who are here in my office in Hartford, as well as one joining us via Zoom. They include Tim Parks. Tim is a real estate and regulatory specialist with Verizon Wireless. Seated next to Tim is Ziad Shaiban, the radio frequency engineer with Verizon Wireless, responsible for the Woodbridge North 2 facility. Next to Mr. Shaiban is Dean Gustafson. Mr. Gustafson is a senior wetland scientist and professional soil scientist with All Points Technology Corporation. Next is Brian Gaudette, a project manager with All Points Technologies. And at the end of the table is Mike Libertine, LEP and Director of Siting and Permitting with All Points Technology. On the Zoom is Sylvester Bempe, the project manager with Hudson Design Group, the project engineers. And I offer them to be sworn at this time.
Thank you. Attorney Bachman, please administer the oath.
Thank you, Mr. Morissette. Could the witnesses please raise their right hand? Do you solemnly swear or sincerely affirm, as the case may be, that the evidence you shall give concerning this case is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, or upon penalty of perjury?
I do.
Thank you, Attorney Bachman. Attorney Baldwin, please begin by verifying all the exhibits by the appropriate sworn witnesses.
Thank you, Mr. Morissette. We have 4 exhibits listed in the hearing program, and then 2 additions that were submitted to the Citing Council yesterday. The exhibits under Roman 2, Section B, include the application and all of its attachments, the bulk file exhibits, which include the Verizon technical report, as well as the Town of Woodbridge zoning regulations, inland wetland regulations, and plan of conservation and development. The applicant's affidavit of publication dated May 24th, 2021. The signed protective order for the lease information dated June 3rd. The applicant's responses to the council's interrogatory set 1 dated June 30th. The 2 new exhibits, we submitted a signed posting affidavit from Brian Gaudette. And then lastly, a revised viewshed map, which is designed to replace the viewshed map contained in applicant's exhibit 1, attachment 9. And I actually had to resend that out to all the parties this morning because there was some corruption of certain data in the legend. So I did send out another PDF of that map this morning. So with that information, I'll ask our witnesses, did you prepare or assist in the preparation of all of those exhibits listed in the hearing program under Roman 2, subsection B, including the 2 additional exhibits, the sign posting affidavit and revised viewshed map, which we will qualify as going forward as the applicant's exhibits? Mr. Parks?
Yes.
Mr. Shaiban?
Yes.
Mr. Gustafson?
Yes.
Mr. Gaudette?
Yes.
Mr. Libertine?
Yes.
Mr. Bempe?
Yes.
And do you have any corrections, modifications, or clarifications you want to offer to any of those exhibits? Mr. Parks?
No.
Mr. Shaiban?
No.
Mr. Gustafson?
No.
Mr. Gaudette?
Yes. One correction, as Attorney Baldwin stated, on page 15, paragraph 2 of the application, currently reads 47 acres of seasonal visibility, which was a carryover from when it was 140-foot original tower height. That should read 39 acres. That has also been updated, as was referenced, attachment 9, the last page on the topographic viewshed has been revised and submitted as exhibit 6. I also just want to point out a couple of clarifications on the photos under attachment 9 for addresses. Photo 15, there's a discrepancy between some mapping systems on the streets directly across from the host property. That can be either Burnt Swamp Road or Prospect Road. So that should be seen as Newton Road at Prospect Road. And again, it's directly across from 118. Photo 16 is directly in front of the property at 114 Newton Road. And photo 17 is also at the corner of Burnt Swamp and Newton, but that is the Burnt Swamp south of what could be described as Prospect and Burnt Swamp Road.
Thank you. Mr. Libertine, any clarifications or modifications?
I have none at this time.
Mr. Bempey, any clarifications or modifications?
No.
And with those modifications and clarifications, is the information contained in those exhibits true and accurate to the best of your knowledge? Mr. Parks?
Yes.
Mr. Scheiban?
Yes.
Mr. Gustafson?
Yes.
Mr. Gaudet?
Yes.
Mr. Libertine?
Yes.
And Mr. Bempey?
Yes.
And do you adopt the information contained in those exhibits as your testimony in this proceeding, Mr. Parks? Mr. Scheiban?
Yes.
Mr. Gustafson?
Yes.
Mr. Gaudet?
Yes.
Mr. Libertine?
Yes.
Mr. Bempey?
Yes.
Mr. Morissette, we offer them as full exhibits.
Thank you, Attorney Baldwin. Does any party or intervener object to the admission of the applicant's exhibits? Attorney Ainsworth?
No, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see. Attorney Bamonte?
No objection.
Thank you. We will skip Attorney Green and Attorney Lasky because they're not present. The exhibits are hereby admitted. We will now begin with cross-examination of the applicant by the council, starting with Mr. Mercier and following with Mr. Silvestri. Mr. Mercier.
Thank you. I'll begin by asking a few questions regarding the radio frequency modeling for the site. And I'll be referring mostly to the responses to the council interrogatories. Exhibit 4, that's near the back of that document. There's a drive test plot. I'll also be looking at the coverage plots in the application that's behind attachment 6. And there might be a part of the text of the application itself I'll be referring to. Now on page 7 of the application, there was a statement that there was little to no wireless service for the 1900 megahertz and 21 megahertz frequencies, but it didn't reference any other frequencies. So I'm wondering if are those two frequencies, that is the 1900 and 2100 megahertz, are those the only concern for this site?
No, the concern is for all our frequencies. 700 megahertz is our frequency that propagates the farthest and that we consider our coverage layer. And even at that frequency, we have very poor coverage in that area in kind of the northeast portion of Woodbridge, around where the State Highway 67 and State Highway 63 and the vicinity around there.
Okay, yes, I'm referring to the coverage plots for the 700 for the existing. You see the site in the middle of a yellow and pretty much a green area. Can you just tell me what level of service you have right now for the yellow zones, and how does that impact your wireless service for customers?
Yes, so yellow is what we would consider where you can get outdoor coverage. So if you're not inside a car, and green would be vehicular level. So basically, if somebody's driving along these roads in a vehicle, they would be able to get service.
If I could interrupt for a moment, if you could just state your names before testifying, that would be helpful.
Okay, so this is Ziad Shaiban, the RF engineer with Verizon. We've also submitted what we call a drive test of our existing system for that area. And that's basically a test done with a phone inside a vehicle. And that was submitted as part of Exhibit 4, I believe, in response to the interrogatory. And that shows that we have marginal to no coverage along the State Highway 67 and State Highway 63.
Yeah, referring to the drive test, was that conducted at the 700 megahertz frequency?
So that what it's showing is the 700 megahertz, but it's basically it will typically show whatever the best frequency that the phone could use, and in that case, it is the 700. But even that one is poor to non-existent.
Do you know the date when this drive test was conducted?
I do not have that in front of me. We can look that up and answer afterwards.
Now, looking at this drive test, it really focuses on the Route 67, 63 area. Now, is that the primary concern for this site?
I mean, that is definitely one of the primary concerns, but also the the side streets and the neighborhoods around there. Actually, Newton Road is also on that drive test, and also has very poor coverage.
I'm sorry, what road was that?
Newton Road.
Going through the application, there was a statement. There was attachment 16. It was like a slideshow to the town, I believe. And one of the slides said, one of the reasons you needed the site was an area with high concentration of network extenders. What do you mean by network extenders?
This is Ziad Shaiban, RF engineer with Verizon. So network extenders is a device that you can hook up to your internet that provides, it's basically a tiny cell site that can cover your home or a portion of your home. And these are typically provided to customers that complain about having no coverage inside their home.
Okay, thank you. Looking through the coverage maps, I was looking at the 1900 megahertz and the 850 megahertz existing service. And it showed that some of these sites to the southeast did not have any type of service in that frequency. Is that correct?
Ziad Shaiban with RF engineer. Yes, that is correct. We are in the process of augmenting our existing cell sites with additional frequencies, and at this time these have not been completed yet.
And what would be the purpose of adding these different frequencies to existing and also this proposed site?
The main purpose would be to increase the capacity. We also we are reusing our 850 megahertz, which used to be exclusively for our 3G network. We are using it now to deploy our newer 5G network.
Thank you. And just to go back to the, you had the yellow and the green, you discussed one was outdoor, the green was for vehicles. So the purpose of this site is the purpose to get in-building coverage as much as you can?
Ziad Shaiban again, yes, that would be desirable. There are multiple objectives. I mean, one of the key objectives is the highways, but also getting coverage inside some of those neighborhoods is desirable.
back to attachment 16, that was the town slideshow. There was a drive test in there, but it looks slightly different than the one that was submitted with the council interrogatory responses. Was there an earlier drive test or a later drive test or a different drive test conducted?
This is Chairman. I just need a minute to look that up. Just hang on one second.
Page in front.
Yeah, I believe that is that was done at a different time, but it shows similar results. You know, roughly speaking, to the other one.
Thank you. In the I have it referenced as a technical report, but I also believe it's in the site search summary. There was a search area map that had a search ring dated May 2014, and there was a follow-up by March 2016. So I'm just trying to determine why the search ring was shifted to the south. I'm not sure if you're the individual I should be asking that question to. However.
Yes, this is Ziad Shaiban again. So this search ring has been worked on since 2015, or maybe 2014, sorry. And so initially we were trying to find something in the area of concern near the intersection of State Highway 67 and State Highway 63. We were unsuccessful, and so we shifted the search ring to the south to increase the likelihood of finding something.
Okay, so the initial goal was to put something up at that intersection, if I heard you correctly. But if you don't find any suitable properties, then you just move the search ring to find something that might be good, but not the best. Is that the way to put it?
Yeah, this is Ziad Shaiban. That I think would be an accurate statement.
Okay, looking at the coverage maps again, you know, with the proposed site, there'll still be some coverage deficiency along Route 67 to the north, and that at 700 megahertz. And according to the application, Stelco intends to install a small cell up in that area. Do you know if this site was approved and constructed at 100 feet, what would be the deficiency on Route 67 in miles that would need to be covered? You know, what would be the deficient coverage remaining if you construct the tower as proposed?
Second. Tab 6. Second map in tab 6.
This is Ziad Shaiban. I don't have a measurement of that deficiency, but it, you know, just kind of eyeballing it, it looks around a little bit less than a mile.
We can take that as a homework assignment, Mr. Morissette, and get you a more precise figure.
Thank you.
I guess related to that is would you attempt to leave the green areas out, or maybe focus on one of the two yellow areas, either to the northwest or southeast of the kind of a green area, or is the intent of the small cell to cover the entire thing?
I I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
If you do install a small cell in that area, is the intent to cover that entire area that's marked in yellow and green?
The intent is to, so this is Yad Shaiban, the intent is to cover the area in yellow.
Would the intent also be to provide service to the, looks like residential streets to the southwest of Route 67? They're also in yellow? Or is it mainly focused on the road itself, Route 67, that is?
Yad Shaiban, it will partially cover some of those neighborhoods, but not entirely.
Do you have a location picked out for a small cell? I'm just wondering if it's a building or is it going to be a utility pole type installation?
This is Yad Shaiban again. We are searching currently, and it's, I mean, we're searching at looking at utility pole, but we don't have a location finalized.
When you do a utility pole installation, are the antennas just for 700 megahertz, or are they other frequencies included?
This is Yad Shaiban. There are limitations to how much equipment we can put on utility poles that are imposed by the utility companies. And so we typically deploy 2 frequencies, because that's the limit. And so it's going to be either 700 and 850 or 1900 and 2100. Again, since we have not finalized a location, that has not been determined.
Yes, understood. Thank you. So when you install the 2 frequencies type system, what would be the limitations for wireless service in those areas, if any?
And I mean, the limitation would, I mean, in this case, because we're just using this to supplement the proposed site, is not severe. I mean, we can't deploy the full complement of frequencies that are owned by Verizon, but you know, it would be good enough to provide service to the cars along that highway.
For a utility mount small cell, I guess we'll just call this a typical one. Do anybody have any information as to what the cost of that is? That includes, you know, going on the pole, installing all the equipment, and any other type of services or fees that go into constructing it.
I think we better take that as a homework assignment as well, Mr. Morissette.
Thank you, Attorney Baldwin.
In the interrogatories, the council requested several plots from some different properties in the area that were rejected for a cell tower site. And one of them, hold on for a second, please. I'm gonna have to refer to the actual plots, or they're in the back of the interrogatories if anybody's following along the website. There was a location number 5. It was called 46 Burnt Swamp Road. It was a town-owned parcel according to the site search summary. Did the town offer this property as a potential tower location?
This is Yad Shaiban. Yes, that was a property that was suggested by the town.
Did anyone visit the site, that location, the 46 Burnt Swamp Road location?
I'm sorry, Mr. Mercer, you got garbled there for a second. Could you repeat that question?
Yes, for site location 5, that was 46 Burnt Swamp Road. Did anybody go out and examine the site from Selco?
You have a bunch of data, not physical.
This is Chairman. I don't think we visited that location.
Okay, thank you. I guess I'm asking just because I'm looking at the coverage plots that were submitted from that location. You know, obviously it was a town suggested location, and excuse me. I'm looking at the coverage plot at 700 megahertz, and it appears that it offers pretty much similar coverage to the proposed site, where there would be a deficiency along Route 67, which would be the same pretty much as would be offered by the proposed site. Would you agree with that assessment that 46 Burnt Swamp Road offers pretty much similar coverage as the proposed site?
This is Chairman. So there are two things to note. First of all, the property at 46 Burnt Swamp Road is 90 feet lower in elevation than the proposed site at 118 Newton Road. And this propagation plot was ran with a tower at 180 feet. But to answer your question directly, it doesn't do quite as well as the proposed location, even though it is a lot taller. But it does cover State Highway 63, you know, in a similar to a similar extent.
Yeah. Mr. Mercier, this is Dean Gustafson from All Points. We, just to provide you some additional information on 46 Burnt Swamp Road, we were provided that property to look at desktop level review. We did assess it for determine what possible design constraints it could encumber. The property is encumbered significantly by wetlands. We did provide coordinates to the RF engineer of a possible location on that property. But I'd also point out that there is a conservation easement on that parcel, and it's also located within a public water supply watershed.
Mr. Mercer, it's Brian Goddard with All Points. Also looking at that proposed location, that parcel there, you're talking now 180-foot tower to obtain similar coverage, similar setting in that there are residences essentially surrounding that parcel. So I think from that standpoint as well, it does not bode quite as well as the current proposed site.
Yes, I was looking at some of the mapping. I think on your visibility map, there was some land trust property around there, and according to your mapping, but I understood you modeled it at 180. And so there was a conservation easement put on there, so that would preclude development of the parcel. Is that correct? Your understanding?
Listed on the land trust. Yeah, I mean, it's listed on the town's land trust website as having a conservation easement. I don't know, sorry, Dean Gustafson from All Points. I'm not sure what restrictions for development are associated with that conservation easement.
Okay, just interested because the town suggested it. All right, thank you. Moving on to site search. This is the application attachment 8. There is site search summary in there with some corresponding maps and descriptions of sites. Looking at property number 7, did the Woodbridge Park Association offer this property for potential use? That's the 7 Meeting House Lane property. It says the owner is Woodbridge Park Association.
This is, yeah, Chairman, I believe this one was suggested by the town.
Okay, did anybody contact the Woodbridge Park Association? I'm not sure if that's a town entity or some other type of entity, however.
I believe it is sorry, Tim Parks from Verizon. We believe this is a town entity.
Thank you. Looking at the site search map, I can see parcel 12, which is a pretty large parcel. And then to the southeast, there's a parcel 2. In between those two, it appears to be some kind of vacant land. Was there any type of investigation in that particular area for a potential site?
Just to clarify, Mr. Mercier, you're looking at the area on that aerial photograph between the parcel labeled as number 12 and the parcel labeled number 2?
That's correct. There looks like there's 2 roads that kind of dead end at some undeveloped land that are marked. I can't read them right this second, however.
White Oak Lane.
Yeah, it's one of them. Yes, thank you.
This is Tim Parks from Verizon. We did not physically look at the site.
Okay, for parcel 12, yeah, that's a preserve that has conservation restriction. Is that correct?
That is correct.
This is, yeah, Chairman, yes, it does have a conservation easement, again, from the Woodbridge Land Trust.
Okay, moving over to the right side of the diagram, there is the large regional water authority parcels marked as number 4. Was the regional water authority receptive into potentially allowing you to construct a tower on their land?
Dean Gustafson from All Points. We did take a look at the regional water company land to determine if there were any possible suitable locations for siting a cell tower. We determined that all of that land is either Class 1 or Class 2 watershed land. So in accordance with Connecticut General Statutes 2532, there are significant restrictions for doing any type of commercial development on water company land. And it has to, at a minimum, show that the action has some benefit to the watershed. And we, so it requires not only approval by the Regional Water Authority, but also a permit from the Department of Public Health. I was privy to correspondence between the Regional Water Authority and one of Verizon's site acquisition agents who had reached out. And the Regional Water Authority essentially responded saying they were concerned about the lack of access and proximity to wetlands on that property and stressed that the property is held for the protection of the public water supply. They reiterated that it would require their approval to put forth a permit to the Department of Public Health, and indicated that it'd be very unlikely that the Regional Water Authority would approve such a matter or the Department of Public Health would approve it.
Thank you for that clarification.
You're welcome.
In discussions with the town for potential alternative sites, was any mention of the Amity High School property? Was that a property brought up as a potential tower location?
This is Tim Parks. No, it was not.
shows that approximate point. So with this.
Yes. That's the one I'm looking at right here.
So Orchard Street.
Yes. But it's all.
And there is a big open space area.
West.
I'm going to move on to interrogatory 36, and it basically stated that, you know, a tree tower could mitigate some of the views of the tower.
Mr. Mercer.
That's something. Yes.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Mercier. This is Dean Gustafson from All Points. I just got some clarification on a question you had earlier about some what appears to be undeveloped land between on the site location map properties number 2 and number 12. And there is some open space land there. I believe it's owned by the town of Woodbridge. We did look at that area from a desktop analysis standpoint. On the mapping, it shows, you know, we're in proximity to White Oak Lane and Forest Glen Drive, that area of open undeveloped land that's, you know, surrounded by residential development is just to the west of that. There's also a street in between there called Orchard Street that appears to provide access to that property. I reviewed that and looked at the possible design constraints, topography, and wetlands. And the property is encumbered significantly by a variety of wetland and stream resources. And there, with the access provided off of Orchard Street, I was unable to find any possible suitable location for a tower site on that parcel without significant wetland and watercourse resource impacts. So I just wanted to clarify that for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Actually, I just picked up the revised U-shed map, and I just noticed that was marked as blue as looks like an extension of the preserve. That's how it's marked, however. But so yes, I see that it's municipal or some type of land trust property. Thank you.
Yep. Sorry for the interruption.
Okay, so for a tree tower, would Selco consider installing one at this site if it was approved?
Let me start with Brian. Question is, would you consider building it?
Yeah, this is Tim Parsons, Selco. We would consider installing a monopine if approved.
For the site, a 100-foot tower, do you know just roughly what the cost difference is? You know, would there be a cost increase to install the tower? And if so, what's that based on? The foundation, the metal, or a combination of everything?
This is Tim Parks from Selco. There would be a relatively significant increase in the cost of the installation of a monopine as compared to a monopole. The exact number I can determine during our break.
Okay, thank you. Now, when Selco goes ahead and constructs tree towers in other areas, I'll just say New England or Connecticut or just a region, does Selco use one vendor, or are there multiple vendors for the tree tower design?
Yeah, this is Mike Libertine. There have been in the past multiple vendors. They have consolidated, and at this time, I believe on the East Coast, you're limited to either one or two.
Okay, I guess my question has to do with, you know, given the new technology today and larger platforms and more equipment on the platforms, I just want to know that if anybody's seen the current designs, if the branches would conceal the platforms and antennas within, you know, on the tree tower, would there be concealment?
This is Brian Goddard with All Points. So the monopine towers can be designed essentially to the request of the tower developer. landlords, any other party that has an interest in the design. So they can be sort of that standard, straight up and down, every branch is the same width. You can have them designed to bow out more at the bottom, have a conical top to make it appear a little bit more natural. You can increase the branching in between, the per foot branching. So there's a lot of different things you can do to conceal each array appropriately.
This is Mike Libertine. Yeah, they're essentially custom to the design for that particular arrangement. And as another carrier comes to use it, they would do a similar arrangement so that it would conceal the antennas and the appurtenances on the tower itself.
Brian, got just to add to the design, some of the design features. When you're looking to create sort of that more natural looking evergreen, you do have to add some additional height to the tower in the form of branching. That can be anywhere between 5 to 15 feet, depending on how wide the antenna array at the top is to make it look natural.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to ensure if for a tree tower that the antennas are concealed within the branching. So I assume, for a full platform, how far out would the branches would have to extend? Anybody have any idea? They say if there was a platform put out 100-foot height of this tower, how far out would the antennas have to go to conceal them?
Brian, got it. You're talking 12-foot arrays is a pretty standard width. So you'd be looking anywhere between 13 and 14 feet to really mask the antennas behind that outside branching.
6 feet on it.
But yes, sir. Good point. 6 feet either side of the pole. So you're looking 7 to 8 feet per branch out from the monopole center. So a total width of about 13 to 14.
Okay, thank you. If a tree tower was used, would painting the antennas help conceal them within the branch structure?
Brian, got it. There's painting that can be done. There's also they make some mesh socks that help blend it in, sort of a greenish camouflage color. So you can certainly hide them, whereas you've got sort of the beige or white face of the standard panel antennas, which would stick out more in green branching.
For the socks, are there any the antenna socks? I'll call them. You put them on top of the antennas. Looks like needles. Are there any type of performance issues or maintenance issues with that? With those socks, you have to take them off to fix antennas or anything of that nature?
This is Yashaban. Yeah, they probably would need to be taken off to do maintenance on the antennas. I'm not aware of any performance issues with them.
Thank you. For this particular tower, did the town express any interest in locating any emergency antennas on top of the tower?
This is Tim Purse with Silco, that they have not.
If emergency provider wanted to go on the tower, I'm going to presume at the top, and they install whip antennas, if a tree tower was used, how could the whip antennas be accommodated?
Brian, got it. Typically, the whip antennas are installed on much less substantial mount than what you would see for a low-profile platform that the carriers use. So I would assume that there would be enough space where they could mount it. As far as screening it goes from a visibility standpoint, as you mentioned, they're typically whip antennas, very thin profile. It would be, I think, a little bit excessive to try and design the tree to screen a 15-foot whip antenna on top. But we found that the visibility of those whip antennas outside of a quarter mile is almost indiscernible to the naked eye.
This is Mike Libertine. I'd also add that there's no guarantee that they would want the top spot. We've often seen those emergency providers, as long as there's no interference with the carriers coming down a little bit lower and affixing and also be hidden within the branching itself. So it really depends on their need.
Okay, thank you. I just have a couple questions about the site plans. I think that's application attachment 1. I'm just looking at application, site plan C1. I believe that's the butters plan. It just kind of gives a general oversight of the site. Again, this is plan C1, and I'm looking at the proposed lease area. Why was this particular location chosen on the site parcel?
This is Tim Parks from Selco. This is where the landlord directed us for the tower location.
Okay. Wasn't sure if the landlord would be amenable to moving the tower location and compound slightly, I guess, north, just so the site is equidistant from the north and south property lines. I don't know if you had that discussion previously, or is this the only location the landlord wanted?
This is Tim Parks from Selco. We could speak to the landlord on that.
Looking at the plan, I just saw a note that there'll be a 8-foot high chain link fence. Is there any type of treatment plan for the fence or slats or any other type of visual mitigation?
Mr. Beppe?
Currently, the site itself, it doesn't have any screening, but screening can be added to it, which will be in the form of green slates, if that is required.
Okay. Yeah. So maybe even is there any issues with putting up a decorative wood or a vinyl type fence instead of a chain link?
A wood fence can also be done. There's no issue with that.
And one other note I saw on the site plan, it showed a floodlight. Can you just tell me how often it operates? Is it on all night, or is it at certain times when a technician might come to the site when it's dark?
Yes, they're automated, and they only function only when the technician is on site.
So
like on a timer, so the technician will turn it on and it will turn off at a specific time.
Thank you. That was my next question. Thank you very much. I have no other questions at this time. Thank you.